Your LinkedIn notification just told you the role you've held for 6 years has been restructured. The word they used was restructured. What they meant was, a language model now does it for $11 a month. You're sitting at your desk, your hands are cold, and you have absolutely no idea what you are if you're not this. That feeling, that vertigo of identity collapse, is not new. It is not a product of 2026. A man named Epictetus felt it in Rome around 60 AD, sitting in actual chains, his body owned by another person, watching everything that society said made you a man get stripped away one layer at a time. He didn't spiral, he built something instead. Stay with me for the next 12 minutes, because by the end you will have 3 specific techniques, not slogans, not platitudes, that you can run on your own career tonight. A career identity audit, a skills mapping method, and a daily Stoic practice designed specifically for this kind of disruption. These come directly from Epictetus's own words, applied to the exact crisis you're in right now. Let's start with the real scale of what's happening. The World Economic Forum's 2025 Future of Jobs report projected that 85 million roles would be displaced by automation by 2026. Not eventually, not theoretically. Developers, paralegals, financial analysts, radiologists, copywriters, customer service architects. The list is not a prediction anymore. It is a current event. And the response most people are having is completely understandable and almost completely useless. They're refreshing job boards at midnight. They're buying courses they won't finish. They're updating resumes for roles that may not exist by the time the hiring manager reads them. Activity that feels like control but isn't. That gap between the feeling of control and actual control is exactly what Stoic philosophy was built to close. And there is no philosopher in history who understood that gap more personally, more viscerally than Epictetus. Because Epictetus didn't just think about powerlessness, he lived inside it. Epictetus was born around 50 AD in Hierapolis, in what is now Turkey. His name literally means acquired, the name given to enslaved people. He was brought to Rome as property and assigned to a man named Epaphroditus, who was himself a freedman and secretary to Emperor Nero. Epictetus had no legal rights. He could be sold, beaten, separated from anyone he knew at any moment. And yet, Epaphroditus allowed Epictetus to study under a Stoic teacher named Musonius Rufus. What happened in those philosophy lessons changed the trajectory of Western thought. Epictetus began developing an idea that at first sounds almost insane given his circumstances, that his freedom was total and absolute because it lived in a place no master could reach. There's a story, possibly apocryphal but cited by later philosophers, that Epaphroditus once twisted Epictetus's leg to demonstrate his power over him. Epictetus reportedly said calmly, "If you continue, you will break it." The master continued. The leg broke. Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you that you would break it?" No rage, no begging, just observation. Whether or not that exact moment happened, it captures something true about the philosophy he was building. Epictetus later walked with a limp for the rest of his life. He never tried to hide it. It became almost a symbol. Here's what the external world can do to you, and here is exactly where its power ends. Eventually, Epictetus was freed. Historians aren't certain exactly when or why. He began teaching in Rome, then moved to Nicopolis in Greece around 93 AD, after Emperor Domitian expelled philosophers from the city. He taught in a simple space, owned almost nothing, and attracted students from across the Roman Empire, including eventually a young man who would become Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Here is the rehook, and I want you to hold on to this question for the rest of the video. Epictetus went from enslaved to freed to exiled to the most influential philosopher in the Roman world, without a single career credential, without a stable institution, without any of the external markers we're told define professional value. How? What was the actual mechanism? Because that mechanism is exactly what you need right now. The formal principle is called the dichotomy of control. Epictetus opens his handbook, the Enchiridion, with it, the very first line. Some things are in our control and others not. That's the whole framework. But the application goes much deeper than the summary. What is in your control, according to Epictetus, is a very short list: your judgments, your intentions, your desires, your responses, and your effort. That is it. What is not in your control is a very long list. Market forces, technology adoption, your employer's decisions, the economy, other people's opinions, and this is the one that stings, whether your specific skill set remains valuable. Most people, when they hear that, feel defeated. They hear, your skills might not stay valuable, and think that means they're helpless. But Epictetus would say that reaction is the root error. You're confusing your skills, which are external tools, subject to market conditions, with your capacity to build skills, which is internal and entirely yours. This is the diagnosis. The modern crisis is not actually about AI. AI is just the current delivery mechanism. The crisis is an identity architecture problem. Most people in developed economies have quietly fused their sense of self-worth with their job title, their employer, and their specific technical stack. When any of those change, and they always change, the self fractures. Epictetus had a term for this error. He called it prohairesis, misuse, the misapplication of your faculty of choice. When you hand your identity over to something external, you have given your most powerful internal faculty to something that can be taken from you. You have chosen to be owned, not by a master, by a market. Marcus Aurelius, writing his private journal in 170 AD, a journal he never intended to be published, which we now call Meditations, returned to this idea constantly. He was emperor of Rome, the most powerful human being on earth, and he was reminding himself daily not to fuse his identity with the role. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he wrote. He wrote it because he needed to hear it. What Epictetus built and what Marcus practiced was a distinction between the role and the self. The role is a costume. The self is the actor. The actor can learn new parts. The actor does not dissolve when the play ends. This sounds metaphorical, but it is actually a precise cognitive reframe with measurable effects on decision-making under stress. The untrained mind, facing job disruption, asks, "What am I going to do?" That question is actually reasonable, but it gets answered wrong, with frantic, externally focused action. Apply everywhere. Rebrand overnight. Perform confidence you don't feel. The Stoic practice asks a prior question: who am I when the title is gone? Answer that first. Everything else follows from the answer. There is a specific historical detail about Epictetus that most summaries leave out. When he was freed and started teaching, he didn't immediately become famous or stable. He taught in modest conditions for years. He had former students who abandoned him for more prestigious teachers. He was exiled by an emperor. None of it stopped him, because his identity wasn't staked on the outcome of any of it. His student Arrian, who actually wrote down Epictetus's lectures in the discourses, records him saying this: "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." This is not passivity, this is strategic clarity. You stop wasting energy fighting the tide and start swimming. Which brings us to minute 9. You've been patient with the diagnosis. You understand the root error. You see why Epictetus's life maps onto your situation. Now here is what you actually do about it. 3 techniques. Concrete, runnable tonight. Not philosophy, practice. Technique 1 is the career identity audit. Take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write everything about your professional life that is in your control. Your curiosity, your work ethic, your communication, your capacity to learn, your judgment, your relationships, your standards. On the right side, write everything that is not: your company's business model, the AI capabilities curve, the economy, your industry's consolidation. Now look at where you spend your anxiety. Almost certainly, 90% of your mental energy is on the right column, the things you cannot control. Epictetus would say this is a mathematical error as much as a philosophical one. You are investing cognitive resources with zero possible return. The audit makes that visible. Visibility is the first step to redirection. Technique 2 is the transferable capacity map, and this is different from a skills list. A skills list is external and perishable. Python is a skill. Curiosity about systems is a capacity. Client management is a skill. Ability to build trust quickly is a capacity. AI can replicate skills. It cannot replicate the judgment that decides which skill to apply, or the relational intelligence that makes people want to work with you. Here's how you do it. For every skill on your resume, ask one question. What deeper capacity does this skill express? If you write code, the capacity might be systematic problem decomposition. If you manage a team, the capacity might be holding people to a standard while keeping their dignity intact. Write the capacities, not the tools. The tools will change. The capacities travel. This is exactly what Epictetus did, though he wouldn't have used this language. He didn't say, "I am a teacher in Rome." He said, in effect, "I am someone who can reason clearly under pressure and help others do the same." When Rome expelled him, that capacity moved with him to Nicopolis. It could not be exiled, it could not be owned, it could not be replaced by a competitor. Technique 3 is the nightly proheresis review, a 5-minute practice drawn directly from the Stoic evening reflection described by Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. Before you sleep, ask 3 questions. What did I react to today that was outside my control? What action did I take that was within my control? And what is one thing I will do tomorrow that belongs entirely to the left column? This practice does something very specific to your nervous system over time. It trains your attention to return to the actionable rather than spiraling on the inevitable. It's not positive thinking. You're not pretending the threat isn't real. You're practicing the cognitive habit of sorting what deserves your energy from what doesn't. Epictetus did this in chains. You can do it in your bedroom. Now let's close the loop on the question I asked earlier. How did Epictetus go from enslaved property to the most influential philosopher in Rome, with no credentials, no institution, no stable career path? The answer is this: he never confused his capacity with his circumstances. His circumstances were catastrophic by any external measure. His capacity was completely intact. When AI makes your current role obsolete, and for many watching this it will, you will face the same question Epictetus faced on the day he was freed. Not what job do I get now, but who am I now that the container is gone? The people who answer that question from the left column, from their capacities, their curiosity, their judgment, will build something new. The people who answer it from the right column will spend years chasing a market that keeps moving. Epictetus died sometime around 135 AD in Nicopolis. He owned almost nothing. He had no official position. He left behind no writings of his own, only the notes his students took. And yet Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the most powerful civilization on earth, credited him as the philosopher who shaped his inner life most completely. That is a return on investment that no algorithm can replicate. The AI disruption is real. The anxiety is understandable. But panic is a choice. Specifically, it is the choice to hand your attention over to the right column and leave the left column unmanaged. The Stoic practice is not about feeling calm. It is about refusing to invest in what you cannot change so you have full energy for what you can. Do the career identity audit tonight. Draw the 2 columns. Do the capacity map this week. Take every skill on your resume and find the deeper capacity beneath it. Start the nightly proheresis review and run it for 14 days before you decide whether it works. These are not motivational suggestions. They are a practice protocol, and like any protocol, they require repetition before the results appear. Epictetus walked with a broken leg for decades. He didn't fix it. He walked anyway because the leg was in the right column and the walking was in the left. You cannot fix the AI curve. You cannot reverse the labor market disruption. You can decide starting tonight who you are beneath the job title, and that decision is entirely, irreversibly yours.